Television Network. This is the 530 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on this Friday night. I'm Jay Cohn.
And I'm Janelle Slade. The Diocese of Great Falls Billings will settle 86 sexual abuse claims for $20 million, ending a lawsuit that began 17 years ago.
The lawsuit alleges multiple priests and nuns working for the diocese sexually abused children from the 1950s through the 1990s.
Bishop Michael Warfel says the terms of the settlement are subject to a number of steps in the bankruptcy process.
And he added there is no doubt there will be pain involved in reaching that $20 million figure.
Certainly we'll lose some of our real property from the diocese. We'll need to sell off some things. We're not closing any parishes over this, and then any funds that would come from parishes would be a voluntary donation on the part of the parishes. That's why we're talking with the priest, and where they need to talk with their parishioners.
Last month, the diocese became the first in the United States to file for a motion to dismiss bankruptcy. At that time, Bishop Warfel said the outlook for a settlement was bleak, and taking the abuse claims to court could result in years of litigation. The diocese says the settlement was reached last week after more than a year of mediation.
The bishop says he hopes the settlement will give survivors of abuse at least a sense of resolution.
It's hard to say exactly what someone would say is fair or just or provides accountability, but it is my hope that it would provide at least some level of accountability for those who did suffer sexual abuse as a minor, and provide some opportunity to move forward in their lives.
Great Falls Billings was the 15th diocese in the United States to file for bankruptcy.
Now, the attorneys who worked with the 86 victims in this suit reacting to the settlement today.
Q2 Samantha Harrelson spoke with them today. Sammy.
Jay and Janelle, this settlement has been years in the making, and for the 86 victims who came forward, it's a sigh of relief to have the abuse recognized. Attorney Brian Smith of Tamaki Law says that is where they are taking away from this. It was not about the money, but about the church acknowledging what was done.
All we have in the civil justice system is the payment of money for the acknowledgement of wrongdoing. It is symbolic of the harm that has been done to these adults who were children at the time as a result of profound, severe neglect and negligence. The most important aspect of this settlement is just the acknowledgement by the church that they failed these kids.
Smith tells me the vast majority of the victims he represented were Native American, with much of the abuse taking place on area reservations. Smith says, though, through previous cases, they have identified a pattern where often priests who are deemed as problems were sent to rural areas where they went unsupervised. Jane Janelle.
All right, thanks, Sammy.
After legal fees, if it's split equally, each of the 86 plaintiffs in the case would end up with less than $230,000.
But attorneys say that number will vary for each victim based on severity and duration of abuse.
Speaking directly to Montana law enforcement today, U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions said America is experiencing the deadliest drug crisis in U.S. history.
Sessions took up the issue of opioid abuse and methamphetamine addiction during a speech at the Rimrock Foundation here in Billings. Q2's Asia Gore was there and has more on what Sessions had to say.
Thank you. This is the deadliest drug crisis in our nation's history. We had a lot of drugs in the 70s and 80s, but nothing like the death-dealing drugs we have today. Approximately 64,000 people died in 2016 of overdose deaths, and that represents the largest cause of death for Americans 50 years old and below.
U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions spoke to members of local, state, and federal law enforcement about the nation's growing drug issue and focused on Montana.
Methamphetamine violations in this state rose by more than 400% between 2010 and 2015. And meanwhile, heroin violations increased 1,500%.
Sessions says a large chunk of those violations occurred on reservations.
According to one report, Native Americans had the highest drug overdose death rates of all in 2015.
Crow Tribal Chairman A.J. Notafraid says the drug abuse issue on the reservation is directly related to jobs.
With the reduction in coal, reduction in revenues, reduction in jobs, it's kind of a domino effect. We're seeing the street peddlers look forward to helping the unemployed gain an easy buck.
Sessions said the Department of Justice plans to crack down on dealers and doctors while cutting back opioid prescriptions by a third over the next 3 years.
We're going to target those doctors. We have a plan to do that. We have a computer system that identifies the outliers. We will not accept that.
In Billings, Asia Gore, MTN News.
Thanks, Asia. Now, before his visit to Billings today, Sessions spoke in North Dakota, where he announced a federal indictment surrounding an international drug trafficking case will now be unsealed.
And in that case, 4 Chinese nationals allegedly trafficked the powerful painkiller fentanyl.
After rebounding by nearly 600 bears in 4 decades, the Yellowstone grizzlies are officially off the endangered species list. In just about a year's time, the Department of the Interior went from proposing the removal to enacting it. This ruling only includes grizzly bears within the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. For now, all other grizzly populations in the lower 48 states will remain protected under the Endangered Species Act. Part of the delisting process was to establish a stable population, limited threats, and a post-delisting plan. The Yellowstone grizzlies are the first of 6 population groups to recover.
Billings Clinic today alerting hundreds of its patients about a data security breach in its email system. That breach affected 949 patients. The clinic says the information compromised includes patient names, dates of birth, phone numbers, and the amounts owed to the Billings Clinic Atrium Pharmacy, but the breach did not involve social security numbers, any credit card numbers, banking information, or any insurance information.
We fortunately caught it very early, so we were able to isolate the intrusion, and we went immediately to the employees' accounts that were impacted, shut down their access, pulled them off of the network. So we really caught this quickly and were able to really mitigate a lot of the risk. There's a lot of illegal activity out there that we have to continuously be vigilant as they gain in sophistication, so must we.
Clinic spokesman Luke Kobold says the criminals masked their location, and he says it's likely not anyone local. The incident has been reported to the FBI along with other authorities. And Billings Clinic today did send out letters to all patients who have been potentially affected.
Turning to weather, Bob, can we please have more of today's gorgeous weather?
Yeah, repeat performance. I think it's going to get even better tomorrow. Let me show you where we're at right now. It is room temperature out there, folks, in south central Montana. 72 degrees in Billings right now. Pretty nice. Tomorrow, look at this. We're going to get back up to 82 degrees in the Billings area. Hardin could see about 84. But then we do see some showers moving in later on the weekend. Check this out. By Sunday night, it's going to be about 7/100 of an inch of rainfall for the Billings area. Through Wednesday, we're talking maybe about a 1/2 inch moving in. But in the meantime, today was perfect. Our own Connor Pregitzer was outside today at Riverfront Park and saw some people taking in the geese and some ducks. And it was a gorgeous day out there. Maybe do a little picnicking. Nice day. Guess what? We get to do this all again tomorrow. Maybe play catch with the puppy. Yeah, it's going to be a good day. Rest of tonight and again tomorrow. We'll have more on what's coming up later in the week in a few more minutes.
All right. Thanks so much, Bob.
Today's sunshine was as good as gold.
And for the opening ceremonies of the Spring Special Olympics, it created the perfect setting. Good luck to all the athletes at the games.
Yeah, look at that nice weather. Usually it's raining or
it's
snowing
gorgeous.
or whatever. We'll have much more on this awesome day for our Special Olympians. That's coming up a bit later tonight in sports.
And coming up tonight on the news, a nonprofit organization is working to stay in the air, and it's asking for help.
And as promised, Scott will take us inside the thrills of today's Special Olympics Spring Games here in Billings.
You're watching MTN News with Jay Cohn and Janelle Slade. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire and sports with